Hello guys. Before coming on Thomson's atomic model, let's have a quick recap of what we studied in the earlier video. In the earlier video, we learned in detail about Democritus' atomic model and Dalton's atomic theory. Democritus was a Greek philosopher who gave the word atomos, which meant indivisible. He gave the world the concept that an element, when divided, and when further divided, reached a stage where it can't be divided any further. This stage was given the name atomos. The modern word atoms came from this Greek word atomos. Also, he proposed that idea that the entire matter is made up of these small indivisible particles. But his theory was rejected because it was very general and was having no scientific evidence. Thousands of years later, Dalton's atomic theory came into existence. John Dalton gave few postulates about atom. And one of the major postulates was that he considered that all matter is composed of atoms and atoms were indestructible and indivisible. John Dalton's postulate proposed that atoms were indivisible. Whereas his theory was rejected too, because after the discovery of the subatomic particles, protons, electrons, and neutrons, it was concluded that atoms can further be divided. So, it was concluded that atoms are not indivisible, but can further be divided into the subatomic particles, protons, electrons, and neutrons. So, Dalton's theory failed with the discovery of fundamental particles within an atom. His theory was proved to be a failure later on with the discovery of the fundamental subatomic particles. Now, the question was how the subatomic particles, protons, electrons, and neutrons are located inside an atom. This was a major question at that time. And various theories were proposed to answer this question. J.J. Thomson was one of the first scientists to propose the structure of an atom. He was the first one to propose how the subatomic particles are located inside an atom. What are their position? J.J. Thomson considered that atom was a sphere. An equal number of positive and negative charges were there inside the sphere. Now, how positive and negative charges were spread or were located inside a sphere? He gave an atomic model to describe that too. This is here Thomson's atomic model. J.J. Thomson proposed that an atom consists of a positively charged soup or cloud and electrons are suspended in between it. Here, you can see the Thomson's atomic model, where he described that atom is a spherical cloud of positive charge. It is spherical and a cloud of positive charge, whereas electrons are located inside it. So this was the atomic model proposed by J.J. Thomson. Scientists gave two interpretations to this model. First interpretation was that it resembled a plum pudding. So, it was interpreted that atoms resembled a plum pudding. Here, you can see a section of a plum pudding. The light brown part represents the positively charged matter, whereas the plums inside were the negatively charged electrons. The second interpretation was a watermelon model. When we cut a watermelon, we see a red part and the black seeds embedded inside it. Scientists gave the interpretation that the red part is the positive charge part and the black seeds embedded inside are the electrons, which are negative charge. So, this was the second interpretation given to the Thomson's atomic model. That's why Thomson's atomic model is also given the name plum pudding model and watermelon model, because Thomson's model represents a plum pudding as well as a watermelon, respectively. Now, what were the postulates of Thomson's atomic model? The first postulate was an atom contains a positively charged sphere with negatively charged electrons embedded in it. So, first postulate was atom is a positively charged sphere and negative charged electrons were embedded in it. This is the positive charged sphere and this portion represented here are the negative charged electrons. Also, the second postulate was the negative and positive charges are equal in magnitude. Hence, overall, atoms are electrically neutral. Let's take the example of watermelon again. When we cut it, we see the red portion and the black seeds embedded. When we crush the black seeds and flatten it, the magnitude is equal to the red portion, the red edible portion. So, it meant that the negative and positive charges are equal in magnitude. Like the amount of negative charges are equal to the amount of positive charges inside an atom. And that's why atoms as whole are electrically neutral. So, first postulate was that electrons are embedded inside the positive charge sphere. Second postulate was atoms are electrically neutral and negative and positive charges are equal in magnitude. Third postulate was the positive charge on the atom was uniformly distributed. The positive charge on the atom was uniformly distributed and it was not concentrated. Like it was not in the center, the positive charge was not in the center, it was not here, it was not here, it was not here, but it was entirely uniformly distributed. So, these were the three postulates that you need to remember for J.J. Thomson's atomic model. Now, what were the drawbacks of this atomic model? J.J. Thomson could not define what the positive charge part of the atom contained. For example, have you noticed that whenever we talked about J.J. Thomson's atomic model, we gave this portion the name of a positive charge part, but we gave the negative charge portion the name of electrons. But nowhere we are talking about protons or neutrons. So, he was unable to define what this spherical charge part consists of, what it is exactly. So, this was a drawback that he was unable to define what the positive charge part was. The second drawback was he was unable to define the movement of electrons, whether the electrons inside an atom moved or they remained still. He could not explain whether electrons in the positive charge sphere are fixed or they move about randomly. So, he did not talk about the movement of electrons inside an atom. So, Thomson's model was rejected due to these drawbacks. The drawbacks were he could not define the positive charge part, what exactly it was. And second drawback was he could not define the movement of electrons, whether they are moving or they are fixed. So, what is the answer to this question? Is Thomson's model of an atom an accurate picture? The answer to this question is no. It wasn't an accurate picture. Another scientist, in his theory of atom, removed these drawbacks, and the scientist was Ernst Rutherford. We will discuss about the structure of atom proposed by him in the next slide. But before it, let's have a conclusion. Let's conclude this portion on J.J. Thomson. So, J.J. Thomson proposed that an atom consists of a positively charged supercloud where the electrons are suspended. Many scientists call this model as the watermelon model or the plum pudding model, as it reminded them of the watermelons or the plum pudding. The drawbacks were Thomson could not properly define what the positive charge part of the atom really was. Also, he did not clearly explain whether the electrons in the positive charge part are moving or they are fixed. So, this was the conclusion of this portion. In the next part, we will be discussing in detail about the Rutherford's gold foil experiment, which was a very important experiment and gave a very good idea about the exact structure of an atom. Thank you.